By the summer of 1943, senior officers in RAF Fighter Command faced a truth they could no longer avoid. Something dangerous was rising across the channel, something faster, sharper, and built with a purpose Britain was not ready for. Reports from gun sites spoke of a new German fighter flashing across the sky before anyone could react. It was the Focke-Wulf long-nosed Dora, a machine that climbed like a rocket and ran faster than nearly anything the RAF had. Its Jumo inline engine gave it deadly reach at high altitude, where it ruled the air. Squadron leaders sent back worried messages. Even the beloved Spitfire, the heart of Britain's defense, was starting to strain against its limits. The Spitfire Mark IX could still turn beautifully, but the Germans had stopped turning with it. They dove, climbed, and pulled away with a kind of cold precision that left British engines screaming after them. Fighter Command needed something new, something faster with more bite, and built for the next phase of the war. Yet speed alone wasn't the only concern. Intelligence reports from occupied Europe whispered about a frightening new German weapon, a pilotless flying bomb able to strike London without risking a single Luftwaffe crew. These rumors soon proved real. The V-1 Doodlebug demanded an interceptor that could hit over 400 miles per hour in straight flight, something no RAF fighter could reliably do in 1943. The RAF's existing lineup had problems. The Hawker Typhoon, though powerful and terrifying at low altitude, hit a wall of drag at high speed. Its thick wing created brutal resistance, and even though engineers had fixed its earlier structural failures, pilots still distrusted it. What Fighter Command needed was not an upgrade, it was a new machine entirely. Something with the Typhoon's huge Napier Sabre engine, but without the flaws that held it back. A fighter with true speed, clean aerodynamics, and dependable handling. Fortunately, one man had been preparing for this moment for years. At Hawker Aircraft's design office in Kingston, Sir Sidney Cam had been studying the Typhoon's weaknesses since the day it entered service. Cam, the mind behind the Hurricane, knew what made a fighter succeed and what caused one to fail. In his view, the Typhoon's core problem was simple. The wing was too thick. At high speed, that thickness created heavy drag and robbed the engine of its full potential. Cam pushed for a far thinner wing, one that could slice through the air cleanly. But a thin wing created massive engineering headaches. It still had to hide the landing gear, carry 4 20mm Hispano cannons with ammunition, and store fuel. Every inch counted. By late 1943, Hawker engineers produced drawings for what they called the Typhoon II, soon renamed the Tempest. On paper, it offered every quality Fighter Command needed. Now the question was whether reality would accept the promise. The new wing's thickness-to-chord ratio dropped from the Typhoon's 18% to just over 14% at the root, thinner still toward the tips. Even small reductions radically changed the internal space available. The team had to redesign nearly everything inside the wing. Engineers also reshaped the leading edge to delay dangerous high-speed shaking, problems that had plagued Typhoon pilots in fast dives. Wind tunnel tests at the Royal Aircraft Establishment confirmed the new wing flew far more smoothly above 450 miles per hour. Another major improvement came from moving the radiator. The Typhoon's chin-mounted housing created massive drag. German engineers had already solved this with annular radiators wrapped around the engine. Studying these designs, Cam placed the Tempest's radiator system inside the wing's leading edge. It cut drag and improved cooling at the same time, giving the new fighter a sleeker nose and sharper profile. The engine mounts were redesigned as well. The Napier Sabre produced tremendous power, but also harsh vibration that could shake instruments loose. Cam's team built new mounts with rubber bushings tuned to absorb the worst of the shaking. Pilots would later say the Tempest ran smoother than the Typhoon, even though both used the same basic power plant. The fuselage grew longer to hold more fuel and improve stability. The entire tail unit was rebuilt with larger control surfaces that gave pilots stronger authority at high speeds. By the spring of 1943, the first Tempest prototypes were taking shape at Hawker's Langley facility. The first aircraft, HM-595, rolled out for testing in September. Test pilot Philip Lucas ran the early checks and soon took it up for its first flight, a short 15-minute hop over the countryside. When he landed, he reported something rare for a prototype fighter. It felt right from the start. The Tempest handled smoothly, responded cleanly, and showed none of the dangerous habits the Typhoon had carried into its early service. And at the center of it all was the engine that both thrilled and intimidated everyone who worked with it. The Napier Sabre, 24 cylinders arranged in a complex H-block that 24 cylinders arranged in a complex H-block that worked through two crankshafts locked together. Instead of ordinary poppet valves, the Sabre used sleeve valves, which slid and rotated around each piston to open air passages at exactly the right moment. Nothing about this engine was simple. Frank Halford had designed it before the war, promising power figures that sounded almost unbelievable. By 1944, the production Sabre IIA was delivering more than 2,180 horsepower, power no other British engine could match. The sleeve valve system gave the Sabre tremendous breathing efficiency and allowed high compression, but it came with a heavy price. The engine demanded perfection. Even the slightest manufacturing flaw could cause failures, oil burning, seized sleeves, or worse. Early Sabres had frightened pilots and mechanics alike. Engines quit without warning. Oil poured from fittings. Connecting rods smashed through crankcases. Ground crews respected the engine's power but dreaded maintaining it. A Tempest squadron needed far more servicing hours than a Merlin-powered unit. Even starting the Sabre required slow, methodical steps. If oil pooled inside the cylinders, a single wrong move during startup could bend a connecting rod before the propeller made its first turn. Yet when the Sabre worked properly, nothing matched it. Its power translated directly into the Tempest's performance. Official figures listed the Tempest V at 435 miles per hour, but many pilots reported seeing nearly 450 miles per hour in level flight. Numbers later confirmed in post-war trials. A two-speed supercharger helped the engine maintain strength at altitude, with most pilots shifting gears around 9,000 feet. The Tempest delivered its best performance between 10,000 and 20,000 feet, the heart of European air combat. Fuel consumption was the drawback. At combat power, the Sabre drank more than 150 gallons an hour, which limited endurance to about 90 minutes. Controllers quickly adjusted patrol plans, keeping Tempest units on shorter, sharper routes. The 14-foot de Havilland propeller also shaped the Tempest's character. Its broad blades turned the Sabre's torque into thrust and into noise. Pilots said the Tempest announced itself with a deep, rolling growl, a sound German pilots later claimed they heard long before ever seeing the aircraft. By mid-1944, Napier finally stabilized the Sabre's worst habits. It never became gentle, but it became trustworthy enough for combat. And just in time. The first operational Tempests arrived at RAF Nuchich in April 1944, home of 150 Wing under Wing Commander Roland Beaumont. Beaumont knew the Typhoon well and recognized instantly that the Tempest was something altogether different, cleaner, faster, and far more responsive. Nuchich itself was little more than a temporary steel mesh airstrip laid across muddy farmland. Conditions were rough, tents for quarters, basic facilities, and bad footing whenever it rained. But the location was ideal. Intelligence had confirmed that Germany's new flying bomb, the V-1, would soon begin attacking London. Nuchich sat directly beneath the expected flight path. 3 squadrons formed the wing. A number 3 squadron. A number 56 squadron. A number 486, New Zealand, squadron. Pilots trained rapidly on Tempest handling and, most importantly, its ability to chase a V-1 traveling nearly 400 miles per hour. Beaumont drilled them relentlessly in high-speed interception, stressing that there would be almost no margin for error once combat began. On the night of June 13, 1944, the first V-1s fell on London, and Operation Diver swung into action. Britain built layered defenses, anti-aircraft guns, fighter patrol lines, and barrage balloons. Tempests took the critical middle zone, patrolling over Kent and the Channel, where they could catch the bombs before they crossed into heavily populated districts. 3 days later, on June 16, squadron leader Joseph Barry scored the wing's first V-1 kill. Intercepting a flying bomb demanded precise timing. Pilots often dove from above to gain enough speed, fired carefully at the small target, then pulled away before the bomb's explosive charge detonated. Several men were lost by getting too close. A second technique developed out of necessity, wing tipping. A pilot would ease his Tempest's wing under the V-1s and gently lift. The small disturbance upset the bomb's crude guidance, sending it crashing safely into open countryside. It required calm nerves and perfect control but saved countless lives when guns jammed or ammunition ran low. Here, the The Tempest's sheer speed was the deciding factor. Spitfires and Mustangs often had to chase a V1 for miles, sometimes reaching the edge of London's anti-aircraft belt. Tempests could close rapidly, destroy the bomb, and climb back into position for the next target. Through June and July, the wing worked with almost production line efficiency. Some pilots scored multiple kills in a single patrol. By August 1944, 150 Wing had destroyed more than 600 V1s, nearly one-third of all fighter interceptions during the campaign. Individual tallies were astonishing. Squadron leader Barry reached 60 V1 kills before his death in October. Flight Lieutenant Richard Van Lier, a Belgian flying with 164 Squadron, destroyed 44. These numbers equaled or exceeded traditional wartime ace totals. By the end of that summer, the Tempest had proven itself under the most demanding conditions imaginable, and its role in the air war was only just beginning. Had proven itself during the V1 campaign, and that success carried directly into the next phase of the war. Pilots trusted the Tempest completely. Even ground crews, who still muttered about the Saber's unpredictable temperament, took genuine pride in keeping the aircraft flying. Something remarkable was happening over Kent, and everyone involved knew it. By summer 1944, German intelligence began receiving unusual reports. Luftwaffe pilots returning from missions over northern France described a new British fighter they couldn't match. It was fast, so fast that some thought it must be a jet. Several reported seeing propeller blades, yet the speeds they estimated didn't fit any piston engine the Germans knew existed. For intelligence officers, the question became genuine. Had Britain deployed a jet before Germany? The confusion wasn't entirely unreasonable. German designers understood the limitations of propeller-driven machines. The Me-262 existed for that reason alone. Their fastest piston fighter, the FW-190D-9 or the high-altitude Ta-152H, could barely approach 470 miles per hour under clean, ideal conditions. Yet reports from the field claimed a British aircraft was matching or surpassing 440 miles per hour in combat. One of the clearest accounts came from Oberleutnant Hans Hartigs, flying FW-190s with JG-26. His unit met Tempests over Belgium in September 1944. Hartigs later wrote that the British fighters simply pulled away from his diving 190s as if he were stationary. He initially filed his report as a possible enemy jet type, only revising it after German intelligence confirmed the aircraft was the Hawker Tempest. The Luftwaffe's own bulletins reflected this confusion. A September 1944 summary warned pilots of high-speed British fighters of uncertain type operating over the Low Countries and asked for detailed identification. This was not normal language. It showed real uncertainty. Some of the misunderstanding came from the Tempest's appearance. The long nose, the slim wings, and the clean planform created a silhouette unlike the familiar Spitfire or Typhoon. At combat ranges, pilots often misidentified it entirely. The psychological effect was significant. For years, German fighter pilots had relied on the performance parity of their Bf-109GS and FW-190s. Suddenly, they faced an opponent that dictated the fight simply through speed. Many Luftwaffe reports complained that Tempests could break away at will or run down retreating fighters with alarming ease. Captured documents from late 1944 began to show more accurate technical assessments, but the tone remained impressed. One German evaluation warned explicitly that the Tempest was the most dangerous Allied piston fighter encountered and advised avoiding long engagements. Another noted that traditional escape dives were ineffective. Interrogations of captured pilots provide more insight. Several insisted their aircraft had been defeated by British jets and were genuinely surprised when shown Tempest photographs. One pilot shot down in Holland maintained, even during early questioning, that no propeller fighter could accelerate the way his opponent had. The irony was striking. Germany had pioneered the first operational jet, the Me-262, yet now found itself unsettled by a British aircraft powered by a conventional engine. The Tempest's performance alone was impressive, but the uncertainty it created gave it an extra edge that no set of specifications could fully capture. As V-1 attacks declined with the Allied advance in France, Tempest units moved to the continent. By late September 1944, 150 Wing was operating from captured fields in Belgium and Holland. Their mission shifted sharply, from defensive interception to offensive sweeps, low-level strikes, and hunting Germany's new jets. The Me-262 represented an entirely different challenge. Its twin Jumo 004 turbojets pushed it beyond 540 miles per hour and armed it with heavy 30mm cannon capable of destroying a bomber in one pass. Had Germany fielded the aircraft in 1943 in meaningful numbers, Allied bombing operations might have suffered catastrophic losses. But shortages of fuel, production delays, and Hitler's insistence on using it as a bomber slowed deployment. Still, when the 262 appeared, it was lethal. No Allied fighter could catch it in level flight. Traditional intercept tactics were useless. But Tempest pilots, often working with Mustang and Spitfire units, developed new methods by exploiting the jet's weaknesses. Slow throttle response, poor acceleration at low speeds, and dangerous landing approaches. Wing Commander Roland Beaumont issued new tactical instructions. Tempest patrols positioned themselves near known 262 airfields, waiting for jets returning low on fuel and ammunition. On September 28, 1944, Beaumont himself shot down a 262 near Nijmegen as it attempted to land, proof that the jet was not invincible. Combat data surprised both sides. Tempests discovered that below roughly 3,000 feet, a 262 could not simply run away. Early turbojets needed time to build speed, and aggressive Tempest pilots learned to force fights where the jet speed advantage couldn't be used. Claims grew steadily. Between October 1944 and May 1945, Tempest units destroyed over 30 Me-262s, a remarkable achievement against the world's first operational jet fighter. At the same time, Tempests played a major role in ground attack operations. Their speed and heavy armament, 4 20mm Hispano cannon and optional bombs or rockets, made them formidable in low-level strikes. They targeted airfields, transport lines, and retreating German columns across northern Germany. These missions, however, were extremely dangerous. Low-level flight exposed pilots to intense light anti-aircraft fire. Losses rose steadily, and crews had to refine attack methods to reduce exposure. By early 1945, Tempest squadrons enjoyed complete tactical control over their sectors. German fighters increasingly avoided them. The psychological advantage first earned over Kent during the V-1 battles had expanded across the entire front. The Tempest had evolved from a specialist interceptor into one of the Allies' dominant fighters. The men who flew it came from across the Allied world: Britain, New Zealand, Canada, Belgium, Free France, and others who had escaped occupied Europe to fight again. Among them, Pierre Clostermann stands out. A French pilot born in Brazil, he joined the Free French forces, flew Spitfires, and later transferred to No. 3 Squadron's Tempests in the final months of the war. His post-war memoir, The Big Show, became famous for its vivid descriptions of fighter combat. Clostermann wrote with precision about the Tempest's astonishing acceleration, how the aircraft seemed to brace itself before hurling forward under full power. His combat accounts captured the strain of high-speed fighting, narrowing vision, extreme physical forces, and the disciplined, almost mechanical thought process needed to identify a target and fire under pressure. His work remains one of the richest sources on both Tempest tactics and the emotional burden carried by wartime pilots. Another influential figure was squadron leader David Fairbanks, an American who joined the Royal Canadian Air Force before the United States entered the war. Fairbanks combined fearless flying with sharp tactical understanding. As Tempest units expanded their operations across Europe, the pilots who flew them brought distinct strengths that shaped the aircraft's combat record. Among the most methodical was David Fairbanks, whose approach centered on managing speed, altitude, and energy to maintain positional advantage. This discipline proved critical in engagements against German jets, where a moment's hesitation could decide the outcome. Fairbanks ultimately achieved 11 confirmed victories in Tempests, including several Me-262s. His after-action reports were unusually precise, detailing enemy behavior, optimal firing distances, and weapon effectiveness, material that fighter command circulated widely to refine tactics. Equally influential was Wing Commander Roland Beaumont, whose leadership defined Tempest employment in the field. A seasoned pre-war RAF pilot with combat experience on hurricanes and typhoons, he combined technical authority with direct operational involvement. Beaumont flew frequent sorties, developed practical guidance for jet interception, and personally scored victories while commanding 150 Wing. His post-war achievements as a test pilot, conducting first flights of the Canberra and Lightning, reflected how his wartime experience shaped later British aviation progress. Countless acts of courage went unrecorded, pilots forcing damaged Tempests home, shielding crippled wingmen, or continuing low-level strikes under intense light flak. Awards such as Distinguished Flying Crosses and service orders accumulated across the squadrons, but the cost remained heavy. Operational diaries list a steady roll of airmen lost to combat, mechanical failure, or ground fire, each entry a quiet reminder of personal tragedy and unfinished lives. Yet survivors carried lasting pride in having flown what many regarded as the pinnacle of piston-engine fighter design. By the time victory came in May 1945, Tempest units stood among Fighter Command's most effective formations. Their combined tally included more than 800 V-1s, hundreds of enemy aircraft, and extensive destruction of ground targets. Designed to solve the 1943 urgency of countering flying bombs, the Tempest ultimately exceeded every expectation. Post-war testing confirmed what frontline pilots had known. The Tempest V was the fastest piston-driven fighter to see substantial wartime service, surpassing both the American P-51H and German Ta-152H in operational conditions. Its performance underscored the achievement of Hawker's design team, demonstrating just how far a refined airframe and optimized aerodynamics could push conventional propulsion. Tempest development continued briefly after the war. The Centaurus-powered Tempest II reduced Sabre engine maintenance issues while retaining comparable performance, serving widely in the Far East until 1949. Its naval successor, the Sea Fury, carried the lineage further, famously downing a MiG-15 during the Korean War, one of the few propeller versus jet victories in history. Today, surviving Tempests in museums and private collections highlight the aircraft's imposing scale and purposeful design. Aviation historians routinely place it among the finest fighters of its generation, capable of holding its own against early jets and overwhelmingly dominant against conventional opponents. German confusion in 1944 over whether the Tempest might be jet-powered remains telling. Seasoned Luftwaffe pilots struggled to accept that a propeller aircraft could display such speed. That misconception stands as a testament to Hawker's engineering achievement. Although it entered service late in the conflict, the Tempest's impact was decisive where it mattered most. When Britain required a fighter able to destroy V-1s and challenge the Me-262, Sidney Cam delivered precisely that. Arriving at the twilight of the piston era, the Tempest represented the culmination of decades of aerodynamic thinking. In the brief moment when jets and propeller fighters shared the sky, it stood as the ultimate expression of a design philosophy: practical, efficient, and unquestionably effective.